Hi everybody, so today we're going to start off from where we left on the last video. So we're going to have been looking at the heating system on the California ocean and on the California coast. So we mentioned in the last video we kind of ran out a bit of time when we were doing that video. It was getting a bit too long, so we thought we'd do them in two separate ones. So we've covered the actual auxiliary heater, so the parking heater, auxiliary heater, whatever you want to call it, the camping heater, which is independent from the vehicle. So today we're going to talk about the heating systems that are in the vehicle when the engine's running. So these are ones when you're driving along, and what it actually a little bit more in depth about where they actually are, where the vents are and things like that. Now there are some differences in the heating system between the ocean and the coast model. So we're going to look at the ocean model first. I should point some things out to you, and then we're going to move on to the coast model and show you what the differences are there. But the big difference obviously between the two, so the ocean has 3-zone climate control standard, so that gives you passenger, driver and rear compartment individual settings for those. So we have a look in the back from on here on the ocean model, and we've got 2 vents which are over above the fridge, and then on the opposite side you've got your control panel for the rear, so that allows you to change the fan speed, temperature up and down, etc. that's on there as well, and that can be controlled via the front panel as well. So we're now in the coast model. Excuse the wrappers, etc. This vehicle's literally just arrived in with us today, so I thought I'd show you now to give you the example of the two. So moving on to the front of the vehicle for the climate control, that's operated by the middle of the dash here. Pairs of vents, you've got 2 up, 2 down here on the side, and you can close them off completely by moving them to one side, and that shuts the vents at the back. Move it back into the middle, opens the vents, and then you've got up and down. All 4 vents work the same way as that, and there's 1 on each side and then 2 in this middle section here. And then obviously you've also got vents for your windscreen as well, which are right down at the back of the windscreen that's here as well. There is one other vent in the vehicle, which is for the heater that's in the rear of the vehicle, and I'll show you that in a minute. For the time being, let's just concentrate on the front that's on here. It will look very, very similar to previous videos we've done on the T6 model. It's a very, very similar system. So you've got your temperature gauges up on the top here. So as I said, it's 3 zones. You've got 1, 2 and 3 in the back. Obviously there's no glass or perspex shield or anything between these two, so there's only a certain degree you can have between the different outputs that's there. So you would set the temperature required, click it on auto, which means it will automatically get to that function, and then the sync button will sync all 3 zones. For most people, when you're driving, if you've got nobody in the rear or you all want it at the same, pretty much put it on sync and auto at the same time, and it just keeps the vehicle then at that particular temperature. Obviously if you change any of these, you can independently then change them, and you can change the rear as well that's in the back, and you also have control of the rear as well. So by pressing the rear button here, you can then obviously control the rear function as well that's in the back, and actually get that to work from there as well. You will notice on top of those as well, you have got separate heating controls for things like your heated seats, which are part of the integrated system, where you want the air to come out from, whether it be your front windscreen, front facing that's here, or at your feet, and the recirculation button. So recirculation stops taking air from outside and just recirculates it within the actual cabin of the vehicle. Last few buttons to look at. Maximum AC, pretty self-explanatory. I'll turn that off, you won't be able to hear a word that say with it on. Maximum for the actual windscreen itself, which is on there, so that again would do the same thing but just onto the windscreen to demist the windscreen in the morning. And then you have got the rest function as well. Rest function is not as important, say, for example on a California, because you've got your auxiliary heater, which we covered in the last video that's there, but the rest function would actually allow you to, so you've parked at somewhere, you're having your sandwiches, you press the rest button, and it will actually keep the vehicle warm using what energy is left in the engine bay, the heat of the engine and coolant system, to keep the vehicle warm while you're parked up without actually the engine running. It's in there, so quite a useful feature if you've got something like a Caravelle. It's quite good on those vehicles as well, and you can use it for this, save you putting your auxiliary heater on if you wanted to. I must also point out as well, the fan can be manually controlled via the switch there as well. So last thing to look at is just show you in the rear of the vehicle, because what the vehicle does actually have is obviously it's got a heating system under the bonnet, and that's done via taking heat from the engine via the cooling pipes, which produces heat that way through transfer. And then there's also a separate heater which is actually in the rear of the vehicle. I'll show you where that's located now. So there's a completely separate heater which is in the rear of the vehicle, which is located down the side panel down on here, and then it vents out to the heating system, the vents down here at the bottom. And that particular heating system is just a heater, so it just keeps the actual cabin warm. So if you've got, for example, you might already know this, if you've got a panel van or if you've got a combi van, this is an option. Secondary heater, secondary rear heater is the option on those vehicles, but it's standard on the Californias, on both models. It's standard on things like Caravels as well, on shuttles, and it just gives extra habit, because you can imagine it's quite a big space to warm up that's in here, so that just provides extra heat into the rear of the vehicle. So I mentioned about the rear heater in the back controls. So you've got your vents here, you can move them up and down to open these vents up, and then you've got hot and cold, so you can change the temperatures that's on the back. Auto, which it's set at now, move your fans up and down, where you want the air to come out from, and you can turn that system off as well, that's on the back. So these are the controls that's on the Coast model. So as you can see, it's not digital at all. So you've got where you want your air to come from. It's twisted around here. Your fan controls, your hot and cold, your air conditioning, your heated rear window, and your recirculation button that's on there as well. So obviously this system is not dual control. You've still got the air conditioning system, but it's only pushing that cold air from the front to the back, so there's no air vents etc in the back of the vehicle at all, or any control panels. Well, I hope you've enjoyed today's video. It's having a look at the heating systems on the vehicle when the engine's running on both the Coast and the Ocean model. So as always, if you have enjoyed today's video, give us a thumbs up, give us a like, that would be great. If you don't subscribe, please subscribe, and we'll see you next time.